Welcome to the Sebastian Planning and Zoning Commission / Local Planning Agency. Today is Thursday, August 11, 2022. Call to order, please. Pledge of Allegiance. All stand. Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, today's Ms. Battle will be excused, and Mr. Cristino will be voting in her place. Okay, any announcements, agenda modifications?
Do you want the roll call?
Well, I'm sorry, roll call.
Okay. Mr. Lucier?
Here.
Mr. Simmons?
Here.
Ms. Cottenberg? Here. Mr. Carter?
Present.
Ms. Jordan? Here. Mr. Cristino?
Present.
Ms. Kinchin?
Yes.
And Mr. Alvarez?
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, all right. Now, announcements and agenda modifications? None? Approval of minutes? Commissioners, do we have any tweaks, any modifications we need to do on approval of minutes?
Move
If
approval.
not,
Mr. Chairman, I'll move that we accept the minutes of the July 21st, 2022 Planning and Zoning Commission minutes as written.
Second.
Okay, roll call, vote, please. All in favor, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Now we're going to switch from the planning and zoning and going to local planning agency. Correct? All right, so I'm going to open, Mr. Attorney, can you read the title, please?
Yes, so just for the record, we are closing the planning and zoning, and we're opening the local planning agencies.
Correct.
All right, so this is going to be a hearing, a public hearing, recommendation, City Council Ordinance Number 022-06, Land Development Code, amending Land Development Code. And the ordinance reads, Ordinance 022-06, which proposes to amend Land Development Code Article 5 by adding zoning district regulations for RM10 relating to medium-density multiple family residential uses, amending Land Development Code Article 6 by amending conditional use criteria relating to RM10 medium-density multiple family residential uses, amending Article 15 parking requirements relating to medium-density multiple family residential uses, and to provide for severability, conflict, codification, scrivener's errors, and an effective date.
Thank you very much. Okay, now, do we open it up to public hearing?
Is there a staff presentation?
Staff presentation, sir? Sir, ma'am?
Yes.
Sorry.
That's okay. We are the applicant. So, on July 7th, you all were presented, there was a workshop here, if you recall, and you all discussed the RM10. I was not here. I have viewed all of the meeting minutes. Ms. Bosworth and Mr. Klepper, who is here from Kimley Horn, they got really good notes, and what's presented to you in front of you today is that accumulation of those, of what you all decided and kind of agreed to that evening. So what we are providing you is a brand new zoning ordinance, RM10. And we felt that in writing this and being able to present this to you all, we were meeting, or at least coming closer to be able to provide attainable housing in the city of Sebastian. As we all know, housing is expensive, products are expensive, land is expensive. So in order to provide for a less expensive model and to meet our comprehensive plan policy of a mix of housing, we are now providing that in the RM10 under multifamily. In addition, we had to make changes in the conditional uses, because under conditional uses in RM10, we had to make sure that it was also transferred over to the conditional use section of the code. For instance, bed and breakfast facilities allowed in RM8 are now also allowed in RM10, as well as CWR. That's just an example. I think you all followed along with that. We also made changes to the parking spaces. We all went through that on July 7th, as far as, for instance, residential duplex townhomes. It's 1 1/2 spaces for each dwelling unit, plus 1 visitor space per 5 required parking spaces. So what we are in effect doing is we are reducing the amount of parking per unit, and then in effect reducing the amount of impervious area required by these developments. As we often see, unless you're in a college town, these unit parking spaces are never really full. So we feel that this is a smart move, and we've done that with the residential multifamily area. I will open it up to questions from, the chairman will, but I am ready for questions or comments regarding this zoning, if anyone has any.
Commissioners, do we have any?
I have no question.
Anyone else have a question before me?
No, because we went over this at the workshop.
I've gone over it. I noticed one on
Okay.
daycare.
Bloody hell.
Lisa, on the daycare
I'm sorry,
center.
yes, sir, yes, sir.
You know, some of these, they take care of 6 kids in a house, and I thought, looks like we're making them put in a roundabout, because they wouldn't be allowed to back, a parent dropping their kid off in a typical driveway wouldn't be allowed to back out onto the street.
I'm sorry, sir, where are you
Let's see.
referencing?
I'm looking.
Is that under childcare?
I don't know, it's not under group homes, because that's where I first looked, and I noticed this one particular item.
Page 1 of 7, maybe?
Child care services on page 1 of 7, are you looking in the conditional uses?
Well, 107, and I'm looking at the handouts here, the numbered 1 through 7.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it would be under child care facilities is where I noticed that. Let's see.
Yes, are
I
you,
would have circled that.
number 4? Mr. Christina, is that what you're referring to?
Page 1 of 7. Is that what you want? Is that what you're talking about?
Might have skipped right through. Yeah, okay, here we go. Located, okay, on a major collector street. And then in here, there's something in here that says you can't back out of it.
Look at number 4.
Correct, number 4.
Number 4.
Do not require backup movements. That could make it difficult for some people. I mean, the lots are, sorry. Lots being as small as they are and requiring someone to put a turnaround on a, say, a 1/4 acre lot could preclude them from having that child care available. And there's a demand for that. There's a shortage.
This is for conditional uses for more, childcare for more than a certain amount of children, which is your larger childcare, so that would be a site plan. This is the conditional use criteria that would have to be shown on that site plan. So these are for much larger sites
Okay.
than those
All right, so
single-family
this-
lots that are just doing less than 6 children.
So the woman who wants to do a little child care on my residential street wouldn't have to.
Correct. Does not have to
Conform
meet
to
this
that.
conditional use
Okay.
criteria.
All right, I just wouldn't want to discourage a small child care provider from
As long as
being
they
able to
are,
operate.
I'm so sorry, sir.
That's okay.
As
Go right
long as they
ahead.
are less than 6 residents, okay?
6 children.
Yes, as long
So
as
if they
it's
had
not
12,
greater
they
than
would have
6.
to, or-
That's correct. It
Okay.
wouldn't meet that criteria for a small home on a small
I
lot.
just know what a stretch it is for some parents to find childcare these days, so,
Oh, I agree.
okay.
I agree.
That's it. That was my only question. Thank you.
Good question, yes.
Ms. Carpenter?
I have, a couple of questions also in that, also in that, same section. Item number 1 under Child Care Services indicates that the site shall be located on a paved public road, indicating, a major collector street. My question is, if the child care facility were to be built to service the particular subdivision, that wouldn't be a major collector street necessarily. But I guess that would be something that, since that could be discussed at the time when we're doing
The conditional use.
The
And don't
conditional
forget,
use?
these aren't new. What's in black is already current code. We're not discussing changing the conditional use criteria.
yeah, I understand that.
Yeah, we're just adding the RM10 into that as,
I just wanted to clarify that we would then discuss that. You know me, I think much broader.
No, you all do, and it's always very helpful, and I think just going back to if they're greater than 6 children, residents, whatever, then this comes into play. And also, a facility located within the RS10 district is the one that'd be located on a major collector street. So it is specifically saying that, right? Correct, Dory?
Yeah, I'm not seeing it. I would ask that we add that language.
Ms. Cottenberg, as I understand your question, what you're saying is that if there's going to be a daycare in a particular subdivision, a PUD or private subdivision, it wouldn't necessarily be on a collector street? And
That's
so you're
my-
just wondering how that would apply? So I'm thinking, a scenario of somebody that would want to open a private daycare in a private subdivision. Usually those streets are private. So most likely, it wouldn't be allowed in a PUD or a private subdivision.
Well, it has to follow the zoning districts as they're listed, yes? And this particular sentence that you're pointing to, it's saying located within RS10 shall be located on a major collector street or
Oh, yes,
larger.
that's what you're saying.
You hear what I'm saying? And a facility located in any other zoning district shall be located near a major collector street.
Thank you.
So it's only in the RS10
Got it.
that would be.
Thank you.
Thank
Is
you,
that, okay.
No,
Yeah.
it's-
Thank you.
I always look at Dory, because you know she has it memorized. So-
I had another question
Yes, ma'am.
in the same, regarding bed and breakfast.
Yes, ma'am.
Conditional use criteria. Item number 1 says that bed and breakfast facilities shall only be located on property lying east of US 1. Really?
I can let you know that the last time we updated the zoning districts and conditional uses, that was a discussion by the planning and zoning, that they didn't want the bed and breakfasts except in the commercial areas and not so much in the residential at the time. That was what, 6, 7, or 8, 9 years ago when we redid this. That was something that was added by the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Okay.
I think the intent was that the vacation rentals were just a thing coming, and you didn't want the bed and breakfasts in the residential areas.
Okay.
I mean, it can be on US 1 or east of US 1. So, I mean, you can be on the west side of US 1 also, but it has to have a US 1 address.
Not what it
All right,
says.
just a quick question. The Airbnbs aren't considered a bed and breakfast, correct? Because they're all over the city.
They're considered transient rentals.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions, Commissioner?
I have one in regards again to childcare. On page 1 of 2 in the rear, under childcare, you have 1 parking space required for each 5 children. And then in the example, I think, Lisa, you were talking about for every 6 children. It is, I mean, what if happens in that case where there's only 6 children, you know, in the daycare? Does that mean they have to have 2 spaces, or is it just 1 space?
So how I can explain childcare is that the state, there are Florida statutes that city cannot eliminate, if you have 6 children or less, to operate out of your home. If I'm an at-home mom and I just want to make some money, I can have up to 6 children with a state license in my home, and there's no site plan or anything that I need to do except get a business tax receipt through the city. If I'm over 6 children, then that requires a site plan, this minimum lot size,
Okay,
the parking and all. So if I'm just doing a daycare out of my home, under 6 children,
Under.
there's nothing that would come
Does that
before
mean
this board of
6
us.
and under?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, but this way, then, if you have 6 or more, yes, then we do need to start applying this conditional use criteria, the parking requirements,
Okay.
stormwater drainage, you know, if
Clear
there's
now.
enough impervious, yes.
Just wanted some
Yeah,
clarification.
and that's the same for foster and group homes also. 6 is that magic threshold number. Anything under 6, you can operate out of your home without having to come through planning and zoning for site plan approval.
And I do apologize. Dory's the one who caught it. Good thing.
Thank you.
In the first page of your document, for the RM10, you'll see that foster care under B, item B, uses permitted, foster care group homes, it should say less than or equal to 6 residents. It was inadvertently changed to 8 by our planning consultant, and we were supposed to turn it back to 6, so we apologize. Correct,
We'll adjust that in the copy that goes to city council.
that's correct. So,
I have another question.
thank you for that catch, Dory.
By all means, please.
I have another question. On page 3 of 7, we're talking about golf courses and support facilities, and it's specific that there shall be no miniature golf. My question is, might not a small miniature golf course be part of a park amenity in an RM10 subdivision?
So if you were to go to Article 22 and look up the definition for golf courses, it's not going to include mini golf courses.
Okay.
And we had a couple of developers come in with we would have processed those as special use permits.
Okay.
But I think, again, it would be, we could consider that accessory to a conditional use, a mini storage in a park and recreation. So we would have to look at the context of it, of how big it was, if it was for profit. But it's not going to meet the definition of golf course in our Article 22,
All right.
which is going to be your full 9 holes, large, typical golf course that
All right,
we're assuming.
got it, thank you. I understand that now.
Thank you. Any other questions? Bill? Nope. Okay, so we're gonna now open it to the,
I did have one more question.
okay, Ms. Cottenberg.
I'm sorry.
Please.
I had one more question, I'm sorry. Under parking spaces required, page 1 of 2, under parking spaces required, flea markets, we have 3 spaces per booth. I think that's,
That does seem excessive, doesn't it?
I don't think it's excessive, I don't think it's nearly enough.
Flea markets.
Those aren't going to be, we don't apply that to those flea markets that come in as a special event permit. That would be if somebody came in and wanted to do a permanent site planned flea market, which is allowed in a couple of our zoning districts. That would have to be a permanent weekly, use, not these special events like up at the Catholic Church. They come in as a special event with a different type of permit, and the parking's not applied for that. But there are some zoning districts that actually allow a flea market similar to what's off of 95 up there in Melbourne,
Right.
a permanent one. That's where this would be applied.
So then this says that if they were to find a location within a place where it's permitted, we are only going to ask them to have 3 parking spaces per booth?
So if they were having 20 booths, which is not a lot for a flea market, that would require 60 parking spaces.
Have you ever seen what happens up at the Catholic Church?
Well, as long as I've been here, we've never had an application for a flea market, so I don't know if this 3 would work at that point. If it is a conditional use, we can always do some research and see how other communities, what kind of parking they apply. for flea markets. I'm not sure if, I don't know if there is a lot of flea markets that are permanent flea markets in the area.
No.
Yeah.
The one up in Melbourne, that's gonna have.
Yeah, and that's been there
Stuff there.
forever.
Yeah.
That's been there forever.
They
Yeah.
probably have 1,000 spots.
But that was a consideration of the church, because they were bringing in so many that, remember, at one time, they were trying to do one a month, and we said, this kind of becomes a permanent use to your site. We'll need a site plan, and this certainly would have been applied to them then, in addition to the parking that they would have had for the church. But that is why they, I think through city council adjusting our temporary use and special use permit section, that they only allow 6 a year. And again, like I say, they've had to come up with some alternative off-site overflow parking.
You know, we'll be addressing parking in the near future. Kimley Horn is under contract to help us address parking in the city. So we could bring that up at that time and try to consider it.
Having attended a number of flea markets myself, I mean, they draw a lot of people.
Yeah.
I mean, not every day. If you had one every day of the week, perhaps not, but they tend to be open on weekends or things like that. And I just think, I would hate to say somebody say, well, okay, I got 35 booths here and I got 90 parking spaces and that's all I need.
That was, as we go through some of these sections, staff always discusses, we know that there are other parts of these sections that need to be tweaked and updated.
Okay.
But for us to go through that whole parking section, you know, we wanted to get the RM10 established, our mixed use, and a couple of those more important ordinances that we need to pass, and then we are certainly coming back to address all of these different sections and have them updated.
Okay.
To not only to the comp plan, but just to current situations in the city.
Yes.
Yeah.
We know that parking, landscaping, signage, those are big issues in the city, but it takes time to get to it. We're working our way through. We appreciate your patience.
Thank you.
Okay,
That's it for me.
thank you. All right, now, let me announce the rules. If we have any public input, I'm going to give 5 minutes pro and 5 minutes against, and I will time you. And when you approach the microphone, please state your name and your address for the record. Okay, so here we go. Do we have anybody that want to speak in favor of this? Okay, seeing none. Anybody opposing this? Great. Anybody in Zoom? Hearing none? Okay, that was easy. So, seeing that we don't have any input, public input, we will go ahead with staff giving us our final summary, and we'll close the hearing after that.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Staff recommends approval of ordinance 02206, and we ask that the LPA recommends approval, that this ordinance is in compliance with the comprehensive plan. Thank you.
Thank you very much. At this time, I will close the hearing. And board, any other deliberations or actions that we need to take here? Okay, so we are going to go for a motion to approve this.
Mr. Chairperson, I would make a motion that we approve and approve this and recommend to the City Council that they adopt this as we are written, except for the little change on page 1 of 3 indicating that foster care and group homes with less than 6 residents, changing that part of it.
Thank you. Anyone
I second.
second that motion? Second. Mr. Carter? Yes, Mr. Carter, second. Ms. Graham? Okay, so we'll have a vote.
Call for the vote.
Ms. Cottenberg? Ms. Graham,
Miss-
sorry.
Ms. Kinchin.
Yes.
Ms. Cottenberg.
Yes.
Mr. Lucier.
Yes.
Mr. Simmons.
Yes.
Mr. Cristino.
Yes.
Mr. Alvarez.
Yes.
And Mr. Carter?
Yes.
The vote is 7-0 in favor, motion carries.
Thank you, staff, for your help. Appreciate that.
I'm sorry, I said 7, it was 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8-0.
8-0.
So and I apologize, it should be 7-0. Ms. Jordan is an alternate that is not voting tonight.
Oh, okay.
Thank you. All right. Moving on, unfinished business. Seeing none. And new business. Okay, we have a recommendation to City Council to review capital improvement program. And we have, I guess, Mr. Grogor.
Joe Gore, the Chief Financial Officer. Once a year, we come before this board to present what the city staff is proposing for the capital improvement program. We look forward to the next year and 5 additional years after that for a total of 6 years, and schedule out what we anticipate being our needs, and of course it's from a financial perspective. But we come before you to look at how our program will affect the comprehensive plan and the goals that are outlined for that purpose. So at the end of the presentation, I hope you'll have some discussion, make some comments, and consider a motion to recommend the proposed CIP to the City Council. The reason you guys are involved, of course, is because it's required that you look at it in respect to the comprehensive plan, but we have others that have an interest in it as well, and that includes the Budget Advisory Committee, that we have several meetings during the year, and of course these guys are the financially oriented type board, so it's they delve into a lot more detail probably than for your purposes. But the Parks and Rec Committee also looks at recreation impact fees and how they're being allocated to achieve what they think is important for the city. And of course, it finally goes to the City Council that makes the final call of what is approved in the capital program and the entire budget. Just a few slides just to kind of summarize the amount of dollars going to the various areas, some of which you may not be concerned with, but others would be tied to the comp plan. There's over $1 million going to technology, additions and upgrades that hopefully keep us current with that technology and also safe from any cyber threats. Over $3.7 million will go to police department vehicles and equipment. $700,000 is scheduled out about 3 years from now for additional riverfront event space. $130,000 is from a recently approved community development block grant for housing rehabilitation. And a couple of lower value items. Even there's $15,000 for the for I guess 3 separate natural vegetation demo projects. So those would be in 3 park areas, and kind of achieve. I thought I read something in the comp plan that that's one of the goals is to get natural vegetation more accepted and implemented. Quite a bit of funding that we've got for roadways and sidewalks. I will say that the paving management plan, where we look at which roadways need to be addressed, and the scheduling of those is not yet complete. I don't have any precise dollar values of specific roadways that will be worked on, but we have allocated practically every dime that's available out of our local option gas tax accounts to fund those improvements. facilities maintenance, you know, it's important for us to keep our current structures in good order, so we do have some monies allocated for air conditioning and floor carpeting and a generator transfer switch, as well as some vehicle replacements. In the cemetery, there is a project scheduled out also in the out years for columbarium, additional columbarium niches, as well as making improvements to the grounds at the cemetery, adding a fence and having mower and a piece of mower equipment. Largely from the recreation impact fees, we've got playground improvements scheduled. There's about 1 or 2 every year. There's park improvement monies and some, well, and one thing of interest is probably a swing and bench park down by the riverfront across from the hotel. And additional facility improvements to some of the recreation facilities. Quite a bit of funding for stormwater department items. The canal restoration grant was something that was in the capital program last year, scheduled over this year and the following year. This is a FEMA grant. It'll take some time for us to wait to for them to review and process our applications, as it's still in the works, but it's not been approved. The Stone Crop Drainage Grant, however, is also a FEMA project, and they have notified us that that grant is been funded for the amount that we had requested. There's some other drainage and road crossing projects that we've got down in the future years. We don't have the results yet from the stormwater master plan that's been in the works now. Those things take quite a bit of time as well. I get impatient, but I guess it is pretty involved. Golf course, we've got monies programmed to replace the golf cart, also replace the range netting and some maintenance equipment and maintenance items for carpeting. A lot of projects in the airport, mostly funded from grants. Just as a matter of interest, if you look at next year's total capital outlays, about 70% of that is using grant monies. If you look over the entire 6 years, it's about 60% of everything that we're spending on capital is being funded by other people's tax money. So I'm wide open for questions. I know you got a lot of details in your packet about the specific line items, some of which maybe aren't of concern from this board, but I'd love to hear any comments or suggestions or questions.
Where's my sweeper? Mr. Kilgore, right here. This, can we propose a sweeper, a street sweeper? I'm serious.
I don't know of any discussion for us.
I know we brought this up last year in his defense, and I believe Mr. Carter also brought it up.
But I don't think there was ever followed up on it or not.
Yeah.
Didn't Mr. Carlisle respond to that at the waste management?
No, we didn't get
That's not a
it.
garbage issue.
No?
Because I had mentioned one time, and it was just a thought, when I first moved here back in '04, I believe there was one in the city. And I think after the hurricanes, a lot of things went, array. Signs, for one of them, I was always concerned about, because we used to have all these live signs, all these animals and stuff. They're not there anymore, that's why you see a bunch of animals dead, but that's another subject. But the thing is, the sweeper, and I've seen these streets in the city, our city here, it's all, with all the construction and everything, all over, and it's really dirty. And I had mentioned it a while back, and Ms. Kitchen, I think she confirmed that, she's been here years ago, that they had it. But that was way back 18 years ago. But I was just in thought that maybe we should have something in consideration and bring
Okay.
something to,
Yeah, let me explain to you too, that Mr. Carlisle is at the Florida League of Cities conference this week, or otherwise he might be here to answer that question better than I could, but I'll be glad to pass on those
no, it's
comments.
just a thought, because as you're the money man, so I thought maybe,
Okay.
put a thought to it, that's all. And it's all good for the city, because right now, the bicycle path, if you look at the bicycle path, because my daughter's into that in another city, so I just kind of follow up, and you have a lot of overgrowth on those bicycle paths as well. Whether they use it or not, that's another thing. But I just don't want to go out of my, but that's basically what I was just talking about.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's it?
In the more recent years, the city has contracted with outside contractors to come in quarterly to sweep the roads,
I've never seen them.
rather than buying the actual sweepers.
Okay.
Although we
And
did
yeah,
have
'cause you have
one
to
way
tell-
back when, we did
You
have
have to
one.
tell a staff member to do that
But we did
as
have a
well.
contractor at one time that came in quarterly to sweep the streets. And we also had one who used to come in and clean the court around, but they don't do that anymore either.
No, and it's.
So-
okay.
Okay.
I'm always somewhere, right? I know what I'm talking, I mean, I knew it was there, it's just it's not there anymore, but after '04, the hurricanes, a lot of things changed. Here, so. But,
Okay.
thank you. That's my thought.
I'm just
But other than that,
gonna
everything
pipe
looks
in an
good.
agreement, with Mr. Alvarez. And I think a purchase of a street sweeper would go and benefit the residents of the city much more than the purchase of a $376,000 dump truck, or cement truck. We have 3 cement companies within 10 miles of the city that can deliver. And the average cost to deliver a load of concrete is $200. So that's a long payback period on that investment. And I think the residents would appreciate that, having the streets maintained. That's my 2 cents.
The other hand, a street sweeper can only be used in areas where there are curb and gutter.
Yeah.
And we do not have curb and gutter everywhere in the
No,
city,
no.
so how can we pay for a street sweeper?
Right, and also you have to have a staff, I guess, for that.
Well, you have to have a person.
Right,
You know.
a dump
so yeah,
truck.
you have to
Well,
look
you
at the,
can train someone to run the
Right, true.
machine, but
Yeah.
is the cost of that machine worth it to only go for the areas where we have curb and gutter, which is very few in the city of Sebastian?
something to consider, I guess.
Yeah.
The
Well,
pros and
yeah,
cons
so-
of renting one or leasing one as opposed to buying
Yeah,
one.
having the service restored. You still gotta train someone for a cement truck too. That's a specialty item.
Any other comments?
And a big maintenance item.
Ms. Cockburn?
I
I'm
was
sure
just-
you have something.
of course.
I could always count on you for your
That's it.
expertise, right?
First of all, I'd like to thank you again for putting this together. This is my favorite meeting of the year. I know.
Be nice, Louise.
No, I'm a nerd.
here,
What can
I
I
would
say?
agree.
I'm hurt, Louise, I am hurt.
I really appreciate, in particular, the justification forms that have come along with this, because it helps me greatly to understand the line items. I always start out reading this with the very beginning, from the very beginning, and I mark little questions, and then I read on the page with all the little numbers on it, and I have some more questions, and then I read the justifications, and most of my questions go away. And I thank you for doing this for us.
All right.
Yes,
I am
you do. Good job.
delighted to see that we seem to now have an actual maintenance program for our sidewalks, which have gotten into some pretty bad shape in a lot of different places. I'm very happy to see that. And other than that, it's all good for me. Thank you.
I'd like to make a comment. Every year, Mr. Kilgore, I look forward to having your presentation as well. And same as Ms. Cottenberg, I make my notes out and then I look back and I can usually find the answer. So, and remember, our main job is just to make a recommendation to City Council. We're not here to pick apart the budget. So I'll just say that, but I always look forward to having your presentation every year.
Thank you.
I've listened to several of them.
Yes, we've had. Thank you, Mr. Cobar.
Thank you. Good job.
As usual. Looks like another award this year.
So we recommendation then to approve?
I'll make a motion that the proposed capital improvement program be recommended to the city council with no changes.
And
Second.
I would second that.
Great. Ms. Graham?
Mr. Lucier,
Yes.
Mr. Alvarez,
Yes.
Mr. Cristino,
Yes.
Ms. Kinchin,
Yes?
Mr. Carter,
Yes.
Mr. Simmons. Yes. Ms. Cottenberg.
Yes.
So it is 7-0 in favor.
Thank you so much. It's always
you,
a
sir.
pleasure being here. You guys treat me well most of the time.
Make it easy for you.
Good job,
Thank
Ben.
you, sir.
Wait
Appreciate
till you
it.
leave the room.
We're making it easy. I can't promise the city council will.
Okay. So no other items here?
We are adjourned.
Yes,
We are adjourned.
there's no more?